We are travelling around the Faroe Islands for 7 days, sharing its history, stunning beauty, hikes and helpful tips we learnt during our stay. This time, we explore the captivating island of Eysturoy, making our base in the breathtaking Gjogv, an enchanting village with a picturesque sea-filled gorge that serves as a natural harbour. The drive to Gjogv is a mesmerising experience with a winding mountain pass drive that leaves you in awe. The peaks surrounding the village offer exhilarating hiking trails, and we'll share this one with you, along with more quaint villages like Elduvik, with centuries-old traditions and stunning scenery. If you missed our 2 previous episodes, here's a very quick recap. We started in Tórshavn, the capital, visiting the old town with its gorgeous turf-roofed houses and one of the oldest parliament buildings in the world. We took to the sea and a thrilling speedboat tour around and inside Eysturoy Island, an unforgettable trip. Learned about some of the Faroese history and culture at the beautiful open-air museum and traditional Faroese farm, and explored the 3 most important historical buildings on the islands. We headed to the Northern Islands for stunning vistas, cute, tranquil villages, and incredible scenic drives, ending up in Klaksvik, the second largest town. Episode 2 was all about the amazing remote island of Eysturoy, where we took the tiny ferry across for a breathtaking hike to the Kalla Lighthouse, and learnt about the Seal Woman, one of the Faroe Islands' most famous folklore tales. On a map, our journey has so far taken us through these islands, and remember, we picked this route to minimise the number of times we needed to use the undersea tunnels that have a toll, some of which cost quite a bit, as explained in episode 1. Right, let's get started. Leaving Klaksvik behind us on the morning of day 4 of our trip, we started our drive onto the island of Eysturoy, with a number of stops en route before we arrive in Gjogv, our base for the next few days. We are heading to the pretty village of Elduvik. One of the advantages of hiring a car rather than relying on the bus that incidentally does come to these areas is that you can just stop and take in the scenery when you like. The wonderful waterfall was cascading under the road beside a small settlement and fishing port on the banks of this mini fjord. We just had to stop and enjoy it for a moment. Along this narrow coastal route are a number of places you can stop and enjoy the scenery. We'll be driving on the opposite side of the fjord later and taking the stunning winding mountain pass that will take us to Gjogv. This mountain is the highest in the Faroes. The village we see is Funningur and will pass by as we start our mountain drive. The village of Elduvik lies by the shore at the end of a long lush valley surrounded by stunning mountains, split in 2 parts by a small river. The population is very small at under 50 residents, I think. On one side of the river is the old part of the village, where the colourful small houses surround the school and the church. Local traditions of drying the fish still take place here. On the other side of the river is the dock where boathouses surround the landing pier. From here, the old village path passes through a hillside to another town where Elduvik locals would attend church before the village got its own. There are a variety of charming paths, steps and ledges to walk. There is even a small campsite here should you be camping on the islands. There is apparently a magnificent gorge to the east of the village that you can walk to, but we only found this out after we left, sadly. Down on the shoreline is a sculpture dedicated to the legend of the merman, a creature that is said to live at the bottom of the sea. He looks like a human but is smaller and has long fingers. He likes to tease fishermen by biting off the bait from their hooks and attaching the hooks to the bottom of the sea so the line will break. One time the hook got stuck in his hand and Merman was pulled up into a boat. The men of the boat made the sign of the cross and brought the beast home. After that, the men would take him out fishing with them, and every time they would make the sign of the cross when he was on board. The creature brought them good luck and they always caught fish. For many years this continued, but one day when the men put the boat out, and the breaking waves were so strong that they forgot to do the sign of the cross. As soon as the boat was out on the sea, Merman jumped overboard and was never seen again. Travelling on, we head across to the other side of the fjord and take the coastal route passing Funningur at the bottom of the Slættaratindur mountain to begin our mountain pass climb. At the top of the pass is a hiking trail that, weather permitting, gives you stunning views. As with most hikes, wrap up warm and put on proper waterproof boots. It's nearly always cold, wet and windy in these parts. There is no real path to follow, but an easy 20-minute hike will bring you to the cliff edge for dramatic views some 442 metres up. From the cliff edge you get wonderful views of Eysturoy Eysturoy, the village we visited earlier and the fjord we drove around. The weather is very unpredictable in the Faroes, and so far on our trip we've been pretty lucky with dry and relatively light winds. Our mountain pass drive ends in a deep valley at the northernmost village of Eysturoy, the charming Gjogv, remote but still a popular place to stay due to its beauty. This will be our base for 2 days. The village gets its name from the 200-metre gorge that has been used by the village as a natural harbour. The settlement is centuries old and has carved a living from fishing and selling dried and salted fish. The population at one time was over 200, but there has been a sharp decline in recent years, and more than half the properties are apparently empty or accommodation for visitors. There is only one hotel, and we booked a room here, pushing the boat out and spending more for a view and breakfast included. It was expensive, but options are limited. The room was fairly basic but large and comfortable, and our views were amazing to wake up to. There are no restaurants, grocery stores or cafes in the village apart from the restaurant in the hotel. We booked in advance to ensure we could get an evening meal each night, as anybody in the village can do. It gets full fast, so make sure you book. A sign on the door said no availability, so many people were disappointed and left having to travel many miles to find food or go without. The meals were excellent and of a very high quality. On the first evening we had grilled langoustine with a herb butter, followed by halibut risotto for Will, and I had the monkfish skewers. With beers, this meal cost 1,350 Danish kroner, with a similar cost for our second night. The menus were changed, and we both had mussels for starters, followed by the lamb. Wonderful meals that give you an example of the cost of eating out, hence why we self-catered where possible. Having enjoyed a cold meat, salmon and cheese breakfast, we set out to explore more of the village. There is a hike to the cliffs above Gjogv, where you can see nesting birds and at certain times of the year puffins. We set out on the path from the hotel, although there is another starting point by the gorge in the village to the same place. It was incredibly windy and at times almost impossible to hold a camera, so we just put it down and enjoyed with our own eyes for a change. We didn't see much wildlife action and not a puffin in sight. The season runs from May to August, and as it was only the 3rd of May, we probably were a little bit early. Clambering down from the cliffs, we took a closer look at the gorge with its stunning blue water. It is quite an impressive sight from the steps looking down into the gorge. Notice the railway tracks used to haul up the catch from the fishing boats to the boathouses for processing. The only incline railway on the Faroes. There were no locomotives, just a winch to pull the wagons up. At one time, as many as 13 fishing boats sailed from Gjogv. At the mouth of the gorge, you can sit and enjoy the views of Eysturoy in the distance. Remember, we visited the island by ferry in episode 2. The church dates from 1929. Prior to this, villagers had to take the mammoth trek to Kellingin at the bottom of the mountain pass for services. They must have been overjoyed when they had their own church. Across from the church is a memorial for those lost in the Atlantic Ocean. The sculpture shows a woman with her 2 children watching over the ocean in the hope of seeing a loved one. In this small village, 2 boats were lost in just one day. 16 men went down. 5 were teenagers, the youngest only 16, and the oldest lost was 52. Often brothers and fathers died in the same accident. Gjogv was one of our favourite places to stay during our trip, and at just 67 kilometres from the capital Tórshavn, a 1-hour drive, it's well worth even just a day trip out to explore by car or via the bus service, which you can check out here. From our base, we could explore a number of other beauty spots and villages. Taking a different route on the mountain, we are heading to a viewpoint from which we can see some famous sea cliffs with a folklore tale. The drive is no less impressive than the previous one to Gjogv. This is the closest on-land viewpoint of the dramatic rock formation known as the Giant and the Witch. The story goes that on a long, moonlit night, they walked across the ocean from Iceland and tied a rope onto one of the Faroe Islands. Risin, the giant, and Kellingin, the witch, planned to pull the Faroe Islands next to the neighbouring country Iceland to have for their own. But while they were pulling, the sun came up, and both creatures were instantly turned into the 2 sea stacks that you see today. The witch is the pointed sea stack, in case you wondered. You can also see them from the village of Tjørnuvík, which we visited later in the day. This is the northernmost village on Eysturoy. Around 55 houses and many more streams running down to the sea are protected by the high mountains that surround this coastal settlement. The vibrant green pastures, perfect grazing for the sheep. There is a sandy beach that is apparently a popular spot for surfing, and of course those wonderful views out to sea. The village is at the end of a 5-kilometre coastal road, and along this same road is the famous Fossa Waterfall, the largest waterfall in the Faroes. The falls have 2 drops, and you can climb amongst the dark basalt rocks and get up close to the crashing water. There are many waterfalls on the islands, but this is certainly one of the more impressive. Next time, in the last few days of our 7-day trip, we'll explore the northern end of Eysturoy Island and the enchanting village of Saxon. Travelling to the remote settlement is like driving through the Yorkshire Dales, at the end of which is a charming village overlooking a jaw-dropping lagoon. We'll spend a night in this wonderful cosy turf-roofed house and take our second boat trip of the week along an impressive sea cliff route, some of which are 600 metres high. The boat passes through narrow sounds and into deep grottos, and we can get up close with the wild birds. It was an incredible end to an unforgettable experience on the islands. Subscribe now so you don't miss it, and join us again next week. Thanks for watching the Memory Seekers.